Moving on to fiscal business, we have the fiscal officer's report.
Yes, sir. I have, the only thing I have other than the bills to pay in the consent agenda, the minutes, is the approval of the quarterly transfer of investment earnings, and I need a motion to get that approved, please.
Okay.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay.
Thank you. That's it, sir.
Okay, very good. Anything under public comments at this time? Anybody have any comments they want to make at this time?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I wanna make more than one comment.
Okay. Well, you're more than
So
welcome.
is it my turn to go? She said be here at 9 and I could go then.
Come on up.
Okay. I don't know.
We would like to
bring the mic to you if
just
you'd like.
state your name and your address.
This book. Oh, my name is Sharon Cowdery. I'm a Springboro resident for about going on 30 years, I think. A 5491 Widener Road, behind the schools and stuff. In front of you, I think, my friend is with me. Her name is Gloria Osborne. I don't know where Gloria lives, Franklin. She lives in Franklin.
Okay.
But the reason we're here is we put some papers in front of you. This little Spotlight magazine came out and announced that the Senior Citizen Center on 741 was going to be closing. It was supposed to be closed in April, but we've been doing a little talking about it, and the CEO, or the guy who runs it, Gene Rose, has been trying to help us, or keep us from having to go away. The center is open 5 days a week, till about 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's used by there's a lot of seniors that use it. The things that, you have a calendar in front of you that tells the things that we do in a week's time, and a lot of you guys would enjoy coming over there and doing it. Maybe some of them aren't quite old enough, but you're close. I hate to tell you.
You can be 50.
You can be 50, and you know you guys are close. And if you have children, I can tell you the reason I started going. I'm a retired nurse from Kettering Hospital, and I worked there for 30 years, and I worked in intensive care. There was a lot going on, a lot of excitement. Just like you see a lot of different things. And go home and sit and figure out what you're going to do the next hour or two. Sometimes it gets to be a struggle, because it's got to be fun things, because you're retired now, And you only got 18 years of retirement, if you didn't know that. So you better be getting it in there real quick. But if you look at the calendar, you will see that there's a lot of activities. We have probably about 200 members at State City. We have silver sneakers, and when I leave here, and I have to tell you that I know you do a lot of important things, but I won't be able to hang around to hear about them, because I got to pick up my 90-year-old mother and take her to the center so she can do silver sneakers with me.
Good for you.
But we have 6 silver sneaker classes, 2 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have a dance class. We have a weaving class, a writing class, an art class that are all free to us. So we have, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 50 volunteers. The people that come there volunteer to run the desk. They volunteer to teach the classes. We have a computer expert that comes whenever you call him and make an appointment with him, he'll come. We have hospice that comes. And hospice comes and we make crafts, but they're not crafts for us, but crafts for hospice. So the center does other things for the community. We have a veterans meeting every month. They play about 7 or 8 different card games, anything from Mahjong to they play Scrabble, they play Bunko. The lunches are served every day, and they go through this Warren County thing. It's a $3 lunch. You got 2 entrees to choose from. You bring your lunch or you eat here, you don't have to run all over the place.
It's donation. If you don't have the money, you can eat free.
That's right. And she's gonna chime in whenever she thinks
You
I'm
better believe
forgetting
it.
something. But we're here as members. We're not representing, anybody but the center because it's been very important to the rest of us. And just like I told you a minute ago, when my daughter found out she had a mother that was gonna be home more than she used to be home, she didn't like that idea, and she worked for Warren County, so she told me to try this place out after about a year feeling like she had to entertain me. And if you've all got parents still alive, you know that you feel obligated to be there so they can do something, or feel free. We have Bible study once a month. We do birthdays and anniversaries, and our director brings out little gifts. She gets donations, and you know, we don't care what we get as prizes or gifts. It's just you won. You know, just saying bingo's fun. Even if you just made $1.50, and that's kind of how it goes. We have drinks that are available there at the center, so doors that open automatically, drinking fountain. Just seems to be a lot that makes it easy for the elderly, you know. We have Cincinnati Eye Institute that comes once a month. We have a watch repair guy that comes and put batteries in all your watches. And you guys know that's an aggravating pain in the, you know, to go get your watches. And especially for women who have a lot of watches. Avon comes, we did a fundraiser not so long ago, and they said they were going to close. We just did a fundraiser. We made over $1,000 just in 2 days, just the people bringing in food. My point is, and I might think of something else we need to tell you, but you can see on this calendar that, and transportation takes the elderly every Friday out for lunch. And it's on this. We went to the museum at Cincinnati last time, and it's a free, no charge transportation does it. Now, our problem is Council on Aging decided that they're part of this group, or not really a part, but they decided they weren't going to fund us. They got a few people to do a survey, and they said that we were more interested in transportation. Well, we are interested in transportation, but we transport each other, too. They cut our budget. So our budget's really been cut. We don't have a budget except for something that comes through United Way. We have members that pay dues, but the dues are not exorbitant. You can handle it. Most people can. And if you can't, all you have to do is let everybody know, and they keep chipping in. I bought an art picture off of one of the guys in the class and paid his dues just for the picture. So, you know, there's things that go on there. We do, like I said, we do things for the community a little bit, but we're in the township. And we need somebody to take up, help us. I said, if all the townships in the area would just be able to donate, I don't know exactly how you're funded, but $10,000 to the center, we'd be fine. You wouldn't even have to donate that much, probably. But it would have to be, and we're willing to do any kind of fundraisers that we need to do for any incidentals, like if we wanted to donate to a family or something like that, we would do that on our own. So I'd like to know if we could get some support, if it's only just saying you'll talk to Council on Aging and find out why they do what funding is, or if you have got any ideas where we can get funding, that'd be great. Because a lot of people will be happy, and if they're not happy, you won't be happy, probably. Okay? Any questions?
Thank you. I am interested in like Council on Aging.
They said the transportation was more important than we were because they needed new vans. Maybe just this year, I don't know.
She's probably 20, the one that said that, you know. Because and the other thing I want to tell you, when you've got old people that are in a building, they're not slobs. They're not messy. They don't make messes.
And we're not quiet.
And, well, not quiet.
Oh, no.
I didn't say they were quiet. But they, you know, they just have good manners and things like that, so.
Thank you.
Not
Thank you.
always.
Well, we'll give that some consideration and thought. Talk about that a little bit.
What I've got a question is,
Sure.
I live in Franklin, and when I wanted to join, I was not old enough to join Franklin, so that's why I went to Warren County. Now, all my friends are there, and I've enjoyed it there. So I'm not gonna switch, but I am a member of Franklin Deerdolf Center too. I called up Jenny, who's the director there, and she told me that what Franklin is subsidized by is a levy. And our property taxes pay $15 for all the properties, approximately, she said. So therefore, the residents of Franklin Township only have to pay $15 membership, and everyone else pays $30. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I know part of Springboro is, you know, Franklin Township also. And so how do we get on the ballot to actually get something like this for the Warren County?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I think you would have to go down and talk to the Board of Elections and find out the
Okay.
process.
Because I know you can't afford $10,000, I mean, get real. So that's a way of absorbing it. But I know Gene Rose, and one of the papers that he sent out to us, it's in the Spotlight, I don't know if she gave you that one or not, it
I
said,
did.
any idea or any donation is appreciated and needed. And so, see, he's not thinking any one person or any one entity is going to donate $10,000. I mean, you know, we have one gentleman, I know that's a member, that every month he's been given an extra $20. And so, you know, and so anything helps. And hopefully it's 1
What's
year.
the Council on Aging, what amount are they pulling, do you know?
Well, they said that Gene kept put in the papers, $80,000 to $120,000 is what we use. I spoke to the director, and she said that she does the bookkeeping for that, and it's actually $82,000. So there is a big difference that they pretty much drew everything out.
The 741 Center is a 3-story building, and the top is heap and other things that we don't use. We just use the lower part, the first floor, and then there's only like 3 big rooms that we use.
And we pay rent for that, and gas and electric, and things like that, so.
Thank you all for coming.
Mhm. Thank you, you read? OSCOR
Okay. Moving on to new business under administration, we have resolution 5151, a resolution authorizing the township administrator to enter into a determinist boundary and recreation agreement with the city of Springboro, as mentioned with the second reading, and declaring an emergency. Is there a motion to approve or deny? When we get this on the floor and then have some discussion. Resolution 5151.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? I'll second. Good day. Okay, let's have some discussion. Why would we? I think, obviously, we have a difference of opinion on the proposed resolution. I personally am in favor of it. I think it's a good deal for the township, and I know Mr. Muterspaw probably is not, and he doesn't think it's quite as good a deal as I do, and it's a matter of dollars and cents in his mind, and dollars and cents are very important, and I agree with that. However, I think the benefits of the agreement outweigh the money issue that he's concerned about. We've had a coterminous agreement for a while, and this is an amendment to one we already have in effect. And even though we have 3 years left on our current agreement, if we pass this new agreement, I think the things we pick up, like the annexation portion of the agreement is good, And also, if we don't, I expect Springboro will charge our, I'm sure they will, they'll charge our citizens for use of the parks. Springboro, as everyone knows, has developed a very extensive park system, which we do not have the money to do on the pace that they've been able to do. And for that, our residents get to use their parks. Our kids in the township get to use their parks without paying an additional amount as being a resident of Springboro. And because of that, those are a couple of the reasons that I think it's worth the additional amount of money that we're going to pay for that 3-year period. Of course, this new agreement is 10 years, but after 3 years, if we didn't change it, we'd be renegotiating that agreement anyway, so we'd be right back where we are today, trying to figure out what to do. So for those reasons, I'm in favor of passing this resolution. Steve or Jason?
Steve, go ahead.
Okay, I want to reconfirm, I think things that I had mentioned a couple months ago, and I have said in every meeting, public and private, that it is best for us to work cooperatively with the city residents. We are all one township. And, when we have agreements with the town, with the city and the township, it's important, for quite a few reasons, but I think the one thing that I want to emphasize is the areas that we have advantages in combining our fire district, working together. It's much better economically, economies of scale, unity, simplicity, to have one fire district than having two. Certainly, the positive impact of shared parks is important. Casey Jane Park being an example that I think is a great idea. We should be part of that, and I would want to, but I don't necessarily think that this is the best vehicle to incorporate our participation in that financially. I think it's important for us to have agreements as long as they are fundamentally fair to every member of the township, inside the city limits and outside the city limits. And if we get to an area where there's agreements where one part of the township feels that they're getting the short end of the stick, then they are going to question the value of partnering with the city, and that would then jeopardize fire levies. That would jeopardize having one fire district instead of two, and I think that would certainly drive a wedge between the two parts of our township. It has to be fair. If it's not fair for everybody, then it creates a problem in that all parties will be harmed and damaged by not having a good agreement, because one of the parties will say, hey, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. And I don't want to do that. I want to avoid that. And when we talk about dollars and cents, I've had worked with Russ and Matt in coming up with a spreadsheet, and I think this is a little bit different than the one. Did you send copies of this updated one too?
I did not.
Okay. This is a little bit different than the one I had shared with you. And I think it's important, if we're signing a 10-year agreement, that the numbers and how it affects everybody in the township should be pretty clearly understood, and how it's going to affect. And if there's anyone on the outside audience who'd like one of those. we look in the spreadsheet in the middle, this is talking about the Clay Creek Township District levies collected funds from 2015 to 2028. Certainly the 15 through 18 is going to be those funds that are in the past that documented. The township outside the city limits have paid 55% in 2015, 56 in 16, and a percent increase each year. When we get up to the years 19 through 28, it continues growing, and the estimate is somewhere around 65% of the funds generated for this levy money will be provided by the people outside the township, or I'm sorry, outside the city, to the 34%, 35% inside the city. Okay. When that comes sorting down to dollars, percents are one thing, and I didn't really have these 2 months ago, and it was fairly shocking when we look at the spreadsheet to the all the way to the right, the top spreadsheet. If we look at the monies produced, including the monies that would be required for a fire levy in 2020, proposed tax increase that was indicated by our county auditor, and compile them, the difference between the city and the township is $24,520,623. That's what the township would be paying above the city for these shared uses. And when we're looking at the shared uses, the track record that we've had for the last 10 years or so, 9 years or 10, the city has used about 60% of the calls, to the township using about 40% of the calls. And I think if we sign a 10-year agreement, there's going to be concern on the part of our township residents that live outside the city limits. I guess before I would go any further, I would ask if you guys have disagreements with this number, with this information.
I have a disagreement with the way that you're presenting it, because the concern I have here, Steve, is you're concerned about property taxes. These numbers are what they are because the land in the township and the property in the township is worth more than what is in the city. We know that. We've got that documented. That you're talking about usage in a vein of a different type of tax. We pay 56% of the school levy, of the school tax as well. But the population is 18 to 13. So our usage is in line with the population, 58-42. So it's right there. I don't have the numbers from the school district as of yet, but I'm guessing that it'll be in line as well. So that'll be skewed the other way. At the end of the day, the city's average property is $70,414 for tax purposes, and the township is $109,420. The 35% difference, and that ties into every one of these numbers. I have expressed my concern about the snapshot of saying that usage is purely a city calls a city call and a township calls a township call. I would extend that to say there are city and township calls that don't involve residents of either. I'm quite sure we could document that. People from Centerville run into people from Lebanon, and neither one of them live in either one of our jurisdictions. So I will rest there and say that I think your concern is in a different area, because I'm happy that our values are higher. I am, and I don't want to try to scare people in the township into thinking that that's a bad thing, because it's not. This gives us unprecedented control over annexation in the entire state of Ohio. Unprecedented. And that's us protecting from the people that move to the township to do it because they don't want to live in the city. And if we give that up and open the doors, they're going to go. And they will, as Mr. Wade alluded to, I've already talked to the youth programs, they will tack on a fee to people's entries into the youth soccer and football and all the other sports that they cover in the city that we don't.
So we'll be paying our normal property tax, plus we're paying.
Plus we're paying part of theirs.
Another tax to use their facilities.
I guess I appreciate your passion, but I just, in this case, we're talking about property tax value. That's what this is. And that's why the numbers are skewed. And we aren't building $200,000 houses in the township. But we're closer to $1 million than we are 200,000 at this point. So do I think it's going to increase at the pace that you projected? I don't, because the city is also still growing. But I understand how you arrived at those numbers, and I'm appreciative that you corrected the numbers on the right-hand column previous to what we had before, because I knew those were wrong, and this is a little more in line with what, as far as tying into the other projections should be. So I'm tired of talking about it, to be honest with you. I think it's a great deal for us. I think the city feels the same way. We are now going to enter in, again, for the first time, into a cooperative with them on a park that the city and the township residents that I've spoken to are very excited about. And there are steps in our evolution that are going to continue to, and we have to have a good partnership with them.
What's the approximate, I think you said it, tell me that again, approximate number of residents in?
It's 18 versus 13. The projected census is 18,000 in the city and 13,000 in the township, which is 58-ish, 42-ish. So, as far as usage, when they did the stuff, when the fire department did that work, that's in line with our population. So, I think that will skew the other way eventually. But the city, I mean, you drive up behind St. Mary's in the Fisher development, they're still building up there. And there's 2 or 3 more that are waiting to go. So.
Well, if we don't, if we pass this and are fortunate enough to get this, no changes in it, and we have the agreement with, to not have annexation unless we approve it, we don't have to worry about them moving south to Red Lion and populating that with homes.
Quarter-acre lots.
We're going to, yes, a quarter-acre lot. We're going to have expansion down there anyway, so it happens, but we're not going to have to deal with the smaller lots that the cities most likely would allow to happen. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, well, on a couple of points, certainly these monies are driven by property taxes and property values, but the reality is, with this type of a setup, the residents are outside the city limits are paying more than if they would be if there were 2 different fire districts. The harm would be primarily, I would think, if this were to separate the fire or the township and the city. I think the people harmed more on that kind of a splitting would be the city. In that certainly we're going to divide properties and divide equipment and things like that, but there's going to be a bigger burden on the city to pick up the slack, and there's going to be a lessening burden financially on the people outside. I used a very basic illustration 2 months ago of if there were 2 farmers sharing a tractor and they both paid on it, and the one farmer is paying 60% to 40% of the other, and the guy that's paying less is using the tractor more, and saying, hey, I want to buy a new tractor also, and I want you to continue paying at this rate, and ultimately you be paying 65% of this, that farmer is going to say, hey, you know what, I like the partnership we had and we're good friends, but I think it's going to be better for me if you take care of your stuff and I'll take care of my stuff. And I think this kind of an agreement is going to incite that thought process on the people outside the city. I believe the cooperation with parks, certainly we can work with Casey Jane. If we leave an existing partnership or agreement that we've got 3 years left on, you know, we're walking away from nearly $500,000. That's about what our contribution would be anyway. So we could take that money, use that money, and there's the money that would be funding our part of the sharing of that park. But you know, when we look at it, that $25 million or $24.5 million is a big number, and I think it's going to get the attention of people in the township that feel that their taxes are higher because we're partnering with the city. In addition to that,
The taxes on the property taxes, unless the levies passed, would not change.
I understand that, but they're going to want to get away with any agreement and say, you form your own little township within your city limits and do your thing with your fire, and you take care of you and we'll take care of us. I think that's what the sentiment will be. I think if we sign a 10-year agreement, there are too many variables with regard to growth, how the growth's going to be, where the growth's going to be, that it's not wise to go 10 years at a time on this kind of an agreement. If we wait 2 more years, then we can have a better feel for what this whole thing's going to be, what the future's going to be, and, you know, take a look at how things are going to turn out, you know, with the growth of both parties and the expenses of the parties. I think one of the other things that's a concern is, you know, going back to, if people get riled up that this is not fair, has the perception of this is not fair, everybody gets hurt if a levy doesn't pass. And that's going to be harmful for both everybody in the township, city, and outside the city limits. And if people get riled up, they're not going to want to partner if they think they're getting the short end of the stick. You know, the last thing that I was kind of looking at and saying on that last agreement that was signed back in 2013 in Section 11, during the month of June in the year 2021, the Board of Township Trustees and the City Council shall conduct a joint public meeting for the purpose of considering the amount of payments made by the township to the city in support of recreation and cultural programs. You know, that's just kind of saying, you know, we're not going to do that. We're going to come up with something different, and then the public having their ability to ask questions, their ability to understand, you know, that just gets, you know, put to the side.
It's been in the paper. Larry, how many times have you written about it? 3? We've discussed it for 2 months. The public has my phone number. I'm happy to answer any questions they have. Are you trying to give the impression that we're not doing this out in front?
All I'm reading is what was in the last agreement.
And to your point, we're 7 years into it, and we've renegotiated it.
Yeah. Without.
So what says that in 5 years we feel like it's a bad deal, we can't renegotiate it again? I mean, I'm not willing to take anything off the table, but I know that the city limits are pretty close to my place, and I don't want to be in the city. And I know a lot of people that came to talk when they looked at the development that's going on 741, they don't want to be in the city. And you and I both know that if this doesn't go down, that's going to happen. So, there's a lot of things in play here, and I just...
There are a lot of things in play for sure, and I still think and Steve's he has some good points. I just don't agree that his points are better than my points, that this agreement, this long-term, is better for us, and not having the city levy a tax on our residents to use their parks. And also the annexation portion of this is something that's important, and something that, we've had a good relationship with them. This locks it into even a better one. And, I certainly can't promote, and I don't believe that the majority of the residents would say, oh, because of this money, let's split the fire department up. You believe they will. I don't believe they will. I think that this is a Springboro community. It's not Springboro Clear Creek Township community. It's not Clear Creek versus Springboro like we have in other areas of the county. Deerfield and Mason, Lebanon and Turtle Creek. It's just not the same. And I don't want it to be like that. I'd rather it continue to be a community and not split the community up and have I'm a township person and I'm a city person and we hate each other and we don't want to work together. I'd rather have this agreement where we're working together and doing things together and not fighting all the time. And there is and you can look at, there are more township residents that live in the city. Those are township residents too. So it does make a little sense, and there's a lot more traffic there that we would have more calls into that area. There's no doubt, and I don't think that's going to swing a little bit because of our growth, but it's still going to be that way.
Still going to be, yeah.
There's still more traffic.
But I'm sorry, Ed, when I look, 490, you own a business in the city, 490 businesses in the city and 88 in the township. That will change at some level, hopefully, but it's not going to dramatically change. So, those are all pointing to usage versus, we even, just as we backed out the senior center, the nursing home, that's 4 points right there, 5 points right there to the calls to service. So,
well, even if it were 50-50, I'm hearing two different things. Ed, you're saying, this locks us in for 10 years, and that's following Jason saying, hey, if in 5 years we don't like it, we'll just change it. Why have agreements if they don't mean anything?
I didn't say we changed it so we could renegotiate it.
Oh, okay. Big difference.
Okay.
Well, it is.
It is a big difference, and we're doing this now because there's opportunity in securing our border, as everyone wants to joke about, that I believe is very important to township residents, and that's why, as a township resident, I feel it's important. I believe you do. I believe Ed does. If you don't, I apologize. I'm making an assumption, but most people live in the township and they move there because they don't want some of the services that the city offers. They won't pay income tax. But as I said, if we see a dramatic swing and we feel like and you believe we're there now. You started out by saying you believe a combined fire district is important, and then now everything that you're saying is pointing to splitting it up. And I don't want to do that. I don't think that's not good for anything, and it would just further divide the two, where we've worked hard to bring the two together. And Mr. Wade's been here a lot longer than you and I have, but we've all done things and continue to do things to bring these two communities into one community, and that's important as well. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, yeah, I think certainly we have differences of opinion, but $25 million over 10 years buys a whole lot of wristbands if our kids want to use their parks. You know, I think the balance of cooperation, we can continue, but there's going to be a cost if there's an upright, and I am saying, I said at the beginning, it's going to be better to have one fire district. But I think if people get in their heads, we're paying more because we have a partnership, then there's going to be an uprising. And that's going to cost the city more than it's going to cost us. It's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars on top of everything once the dust settles from splitting the equipment and the acreage or the houses. So, you know, I think I've said what I have to say.
Well, I think we're pretty clear on that there's a difference of opinion, and, you know, I respect your opinion.
It is what it is.
Jason's and mine also, and it is what it is. So, unless anybody has something else they'd like to bring up, I think we'll have a vote. Anything else, Steve? Jason?
Nope.
Russ, roll call, please.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
No.
Mr. Wade, just for the record, we had that as an emergency, but because it passed by a majority, the way the statute reads 504(11)A, this will be effective in 30 days rather than right now. So I just wanted to make that clear. So none of the legislation needs to be changed.
Right.
It's all, as a matter of statute, this will be effective 30 days from after it's filed with the physical officer.
So no minutes.
Thank you.
So it's an emergency, but we have to wait.
It's, yeah, because it wasn't passed
Understood.
wasn't passed unanimously.
Okay.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. Very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you. All right, the next item under administration is Resolution 5160, a resolution authorizing the administrator to enter into the lease agreement with Warren County Soccer Academy, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency.
Yes, this is really just journalizing the agreement that the board has already considered and passed, using the resolution to do it on advice of council. So if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them, but really this is
Anybody have any questions for Matt? Okay, is there a motion to approve 5160?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. And we have 5161, a resolution authorizing the administrator to enter into a temporary right of entry and work agreement with Warren County Engineers Office, dispensing with the second reading and declaring an emergency.
Yeah, I've had a good deal of conversation, as has the law director, with staff engineer from Neil's office, wanting to do a stream restoration or stream reinforcement work in Clear Creek. And to do so, they need the right of entry into 2 parcels along Springboro Road to do so. I've looked over what their proposed work is, and I think it's a very beneficial exercise by the engineer's office to undertake that. So, without reservation, I recommend that the board consider this.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Matt about 5161? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsfall?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah. And under administration, anything else? Anybody have anything else? Okay, moving on to planning and zoning, we have resolution 5162, a resolution declaring a nuisance of property located at 137 Gertrude Avenue in Lebanon, Clear Creek Township, and ordering the removal of junk vehicles after sufficient notice, dispensing with the second reading and declaring a nuisance, declaring an emergency and a nuisance.
It's a mouthful, so, for
Yeah.
sure.
So-
Just as we do with high grass and trash, this is in the statute as an option. As property owner, we've done numerous 30 days. We've had our attorney write a letter, and we've gotten nowhere with them. So instead of going through the courts, what we want to try is this section of the ORC. Give them an opportunity yet again to abate their issue. If not, then we'll abate their issue and put that on the taxes.
Okay, very good. Anything else under zoning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Moving on to the fire
Wait,
district.
you should vote on it. I'm sorry.
Is there a motion to approve 5162?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah. Okay, now moving on to fire district, we have a request to utilize the low foundation award funds of $20,000 along with other budgeted monies to purchase the three different items amounting to $28,727. Anything you'd like to point out about that?
This is all within the scope of our grant application. Be happy to answer any questions. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory, but all.
Is it? Anybody have any questions? We're provided with the actual statement from these three different vendors. I did have a chance to look at those, and I do not have any questions. Anybody have any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve this expenditure?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yay. And now we have or anything else from the fire district?
Not this time, sure, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Road and Parks, we have a request to make conditional offer of seasonal employment to 3 individuals at a rate of $11 per hour. Scott,
Winter's over, summer's coming, we need the help, so it's a pretty yearly thing that we do. We do have 2 coming back, which helps. These candidates all came pretty good. Minnie interviewed them all. I haven't met them all, so off of her recommendation, those are the 3 that she chose. I guess typically we don't get the quality that we get, and this year we had some good ones, so.
excellent. Anybody have any questions about this conditional offer to hire these seasonal employees? Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah. Chief, no business today?
No, sir.
No, quiet. Okay.
Quiet, but nothing to do.
The sun shining. And the moon's not
Beautiful
And we do have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah. Anything under staff updates? Anything else to bring up? Matt, all good? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
Yay.
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yay.
Mr. Wade?
Yes.